Hi everyone. Hi Yemi. Hi
Hi,
May.
how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Fine, great. I'm excited for us to be on this panel together. It's really amazing, to tell the whole world about the experience of work in Africa. I know that we have a lot to share. Some of the amazing stuff that we're doing and some of the challenges as well that we are going through. So why don't we just start quickly by each one of you introducing, if you can introduce yourself so everybody will get to know your background and then so they will know where you're coming from when we are having this discussion. So you want to start, May?
Yes, I can start. Good morning, world. It's 12. Actually, good afternoon. It's 12 here in Kenya. My name is Nyaga. I'm the head of human resource at Copycat Group, a leading systems integrator in East Africa. We are in operations in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania, with the highest level of skills and experience to offer comprehensive solutions to large, medium, and small enterprises by connecting local needs with global technologies. Welcome to the conference.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, May. Yemi?
Okay, good morning from this side, Africa. Good morning, the world. My name is Yemi Faseun. I started my career in sales and then moved into marketing before I landed in HR. And from an HR experience perspective, I've been within 3 to 4 sectors: consulting, banking, telco. And
Wow.
last role was basically around head of human resources for ABN Quest Merchant Bank, where I was for 3 years before deciding recently to take some sort of career break to sharpen the axe, if you say that.
No, that's a good one. Hey, thanks a
Thank
lot,
you.
guys. Thanks a lot. So just a little bit about myself. I've been online several times, but just for those who don't know me. So I'm Emma, and I'm the founder of OneCircleHR.com. I have more than 20 years of HR experience. Have been in HR director roles for a very long time. I've been in roles, senior leadership roles with companies whose I always joke about it, whose the turnover is more than the GDP of some countries. Big responsibilities, went through all the ups and downs, different economic cycles. So I've seen organizations contract and expand and contract and expand again to the extent that it was so tiring. And that was one of the reasons as well where I started OneCircleHR.com. So guys, let's get started. I do have some questions for you. And
Okay.
I'm gonna start with, those chilling statistics that we always get about unemployment in Africa specifically, and we get those the whole time, right? And the potential ramifications of those of unemployment on the whole African continent and the African countries are of really big proportions, especially when more than half of the African population is under the age of 30. And us being in HR, we feel that and we see that. And lots of times we try our best to do things. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. And I always say that this time bomb is not only just ticking, but it's actually racing. And what are we doing about it? So we do know that it's crucial for governments to foster the right environment whereby we can earn a decent living, do meaningful work, become gainful participants in the economy. But then again, ideally, governments, they must provide as well the proper legislations and regulatory frameworks to offer high value and high return incentives to get those key stakeholders on board, right? And they must do so in a very sustained collective manner. But most importantly, they must realize that solving the unemployment problem is not only through job creation. That job creation is just one dimension. But what we need, especially in Africa, is a more holistic approach, right? And that also considers everyone's personal development through formal education. So coming from formal education all the way until the job market, etc. And for corporates to take on responsibilities. So it makes no sense to, for example, to create 100 technology jobs when you don't have people with tech backgrounds that are entering the workforce. So, and then we eventually end up bringing expats from outside of Africa in order to help. So this is where I want to take the discussion, and I want to understand what's your thoughts on the youth experience when it comes to work in Africa, when they are faced with this continuous challenge of unemployment and they hear it and they understand it psychologically, but as well when they get into the workforce and it's time for them to participate. So what are your thoughts on this? And the other point is, both in your respective corporate roles, and I'm sure with all of your connections, how are the companies taking on responsibility when it comes to upskilling and reskilling the people?
Okay. All right.
May, you want to get started?
Oh, yes. A very good questions and analysis there about Africa. And we have a quickly rising youth population for whom lack of formal sector means that most turn to informal sectors such as domestic work, casual labor, or smallholder farming. Africa continent is of diversity with plenty to explore, and the World Bank forecast that an economic growth of 3.6% by end of 2020. So we have a scenario where skill shortages across Africa is due to technical knowledge, insufficient or non-existent training, or even lack of university degrees. However, this skill set is very crucial. So what are we doing, especially at Copycat, and I believe most of the companies across Africa have started to upskill and reskill, is that we take cognizance of the fact that new technology is sweeping across Africa and giving businesses these exciting opportunities that did not exist only a few years ago, if you look at it.
Yeah.
So these same businesses will have employees who will require this skill set needed to thrive in a modern workplace. So not only Africa is a home of quarter of world's population, but it also means that the workforce of the future could be the one currently being created alongside digital innovation, adoption, and integration throughout Africa. So fast forward, other than bringing latest technology advancement for our own sake, but also empowering our people, it's very critical, be it the small business owners or employees of rapidly expanding companies, to maximize their own potential and use the technology to improve efficiencies, develop better products, or even improve customer experience. Yes, I think that's my take on that.
So to go back onto this particular point, so I understand and I can see that happening, where we're bringing in a lot of new technologies, and that's a big shift, right, in the corporate world. So how is it on your side that you are making sure that the people that are there are being trained and they are comfortable with all of those new techs that are introduced? But at the same time, what about the new graduates that are going out of universities and schools, and they are not fully equipped because of the education system that we have? How are we going to match those with those new tech jobs? So what's the plan? Or let's not talk about the plan. What is being done currently, maybe?
Okay, we've like locally at Copycat, we have taken current stock of workers or employees. And we take cognizance some do not have the ability to go back to school or even university. Okay. So we are looking at reskilling and upskilling those who are not in school or in formal jobs, at least to bring them up to speed. Another element is that starting management trainees program and partnering with universities, whereby we are able to get young, fresh engineers, fresh from college, for both our business units. I'm talking from two diverse. We offer IT services and office automation. So we have also technical colleges that we have partnered with, that we come up with internships and management trainees that we take them through the skilling, and they're able to train through a span of 1 year, 2 years, to be able to acclimatize to the environment at Copycat. Yes. Yeah.
That's really good. That's amazing. What about you, Yemi?
Okay, so let me add a bit to the statistics that you rolled out. The last graduate training that we conducted at my last place of work, we had 14,000 applicants who successfully came through the process. 14,000. We eventually shortlisted down to about 1,000 for the computer-based testing. And then we did interviews for about 75. Guess how many people we're looking for? Just about 25. About
Wow.
25. And
25,
we started
you started with how
from
many applicants? 15,000. Did I get you right?
over 14,000, close to 15,000. So the reality is that there is a huge gap between supply and demand in the market in Africa. And it's getting worse because, again, technology is making more and more the global space a village. And despite the fact that we have shortage of skills, we have shortage of jobs, more and more Africans are also now migrating to the first world. So the situation becomes a bit more critical. If you put the issue of substandard education in the mix, it becomes even more complex for Africa. We have more graduates coming out of the university who are not skilled in any way. But what organizations are doing is to not take the individuals wholesale into the organization without, at the point of entry, getting them ready for the place of work. So our graduate training program will run for about 8 weeks, classroom, both technical, soft skills, and then we put them through a kind of rotational process where they understand exactly the skills that they need from the different areas of the business before they eventually settle into one particular space. So more and more organizations are doing that. And what we've also seen is that we have organizations who are trying to mind the gap, if I could use the expression, the gap between guys coming out of school and what the corporate world needs. Some organizations are saying we will take them as they're coming out of school. We will take time to remodel them, repackage them, get them ready for the place of work. Another 3 months, another 6 months, and therefore they become a ready market for the workplace. So organizations are now going to such organizations, the small organizations, getting graduates ready to buy, if I could use that expression again, ready-made skills for the market. So a lot is going on, but the point is, technology is also changing the face of work. And as we're losing skills due to technology, we're also getting new skills. So it behoves the individuals as well to make sure that they understand what the new skills are and how they can get themselves ready additionally for the place of work.
Yes. And that's really great. I was recently as well participating as a judge on one of the gender mainstreaming. It was gender mainstreaming awards, and I was sitting as a judge on a panel. And a lot of companies in South Africa as well, if I can share the experience from the South African context, are doing exactly that. So what they're doing is actually reaching out to universities and schools, and they're taking a lot of them are taking on board females who specifically females, and they are developing them. So what they're doing is that they're getting them through a training program over a period of 12 to 18 months, and then a management training program that follows it, all paid by the corporates, in order for them to get a sense of an actual work environment, to so they can go through the training, but as well technical background training, and to use whatever they have studied in college or in university in the corporate environment. The only problem is that once they go back into the marketplace, there's not enough jobs for them. And this is what you were talking about in terms of the gap. So the pace of change is very quick, and there's a lot of great initiatives that are happening. And this is what I would like to highlight. The thing is that the skill in terms of how many people we have and the number of jobs that are being created, this is where the gap is, and this is the big difficulty, I guess. So on this point, this will take me to the next point that I wanted to touch on, is that we know that we live in this dynamic, that's this era of change that we can call it, and there's all of those new technologies that we are talking about, right? So now we have robotics, we have virtual reality, we have IoT, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. There's like so much that is happening. And as you guys mentioned as well, and I'm sure everybody who's listening are experiencing this in the workplace, everywhere, whether they're employers, whether they're employees, or whether they're customers, because they can see the change impacting operations and products, and a lot of things that we were used to before that now are operating differently. So the implications are new opportunities, right? This is what we were saying. It's Yemi, you touched on this, saying that there's a lot of new opportunities. It's just different types of opportunities. And like right now, the potential to be able to bring a lot of more people online and connect them together, as well as to exponentially improve the business process efficiency. So like, for example, today we are having this global conference where everybody is connected from everywhere around the world, and everybody is watching and sharing knowledge and learning online. So new technologies are definitely impacting all work disciplines and industries. And here where I want to funnel it down to HR, including HR, right? So we will ultimately at some point need to redefine what is the HR function, right? So I see the biggest challenge and the change will be related to the way that we work and the very substance and the meaning of work itself. Because technology has unleashed so many opportunities for us to work in a smarter way. But then as HR leaders, what is it that we are busy with today? We spoke about upskilling and reskilling. I get that. But I mean, as CHROs, HR directors in an organization and corporates, and specifically in Africa, we have a lot of pressure to optimize our HR operations and its impact and its contribution on the bottom line, and especially with the difficult economic situation that a lot of the African countries are going through at the moment. So what do you think HR is busy with today, and how much of that are we really using to get ready for the future and to be future ready, if not present ready?
Yes.
May, you will get started.
Okay. Right now we need to understand that HR has come a long way and has undergone through dynamic skills in roles, functions, and overall impact in the shaping organizations. And we understand more than ever it's getting recognition and appreciation from the C-suite.
Yeah.
So for the HR and for the HR role to be relevant and remain relevant in the ever-changing environment, which has become diverse, is that, first of all, growing own knowledge is very critical and to quickly adapt to the changing landscape of human capital capability, workforce planning, in a while leading an organization adaptation to digitization. So we are also seeing an element whereby we are seeing sweeping changes on the horizon on how HR is questioning the business. Where are we going? How are we going to do it? And the why has to be done and why the work has to be done. And this will evolve to the future of our work expert. We also need to understand, other than the usual BAU, we are always told we're always running with the day-to-day operations and not focusing on the strategy. However, leading change is very paramount and important to be future of proof. Therefore, at the same time, running across strategy on recruitment, performance management, succession planning, training, the whole works of the HR role. Yes.
So how do you feel that, how as in a senior role within an organization, you mentioned C-suite, taking things forward, etc. How are we leveraging on technology when in the context of the whole new way of working, given that a lot of the practices in some of the African countries are still trying to catch up with what is happening in this new world?
Okay. We take cognizant of the fact that as the technology comes into wave, we have different ways of how we adapt to change. And we are seeing how we are harnessing resources and insight to redefine obsolete models and implement technologies such as analytics, digital labor, and AI. And however, we also take take cognizance that it can be confusing and overwhelming with those so many additions, as well as struggling to adapt to this digital era. So, or ignoring the whole change and hoping things will change for tomorrow. So one of the critical things that HR is doing is, especially on the processes side, adapting on the strategy on how to support the business, as well as ensuring that the bottom line, they have an impact in the bottom line of the company, yes.
Yeah.
And the contribution,
Thank you.
yes.
Thanks,
yes.
thanks, Yemi.
Okay, let me be as realistic I can be and add two things to what May has said. The first thing I would say is HR people, HR leaders are talking a lot about the future of work, what technology can allow us to do, and all that, but we're struggling to have that conversations go through with leadership to say that the future is today, and therefore we need to change the landscape of the workplace itself in terms of how we work. It's a difficult conversation still in some organizations for us to get flexi work schedule into our workplaces. And that's amazing. I mean, like you made allusion to it, we're now talking to 7,000 delegates across the globe at different locations, and it's working seamlessly. This could just be a meeting. It could be a business meeting we're having right now. So if technology is allowing us to do this, why can't we see the opportunities that allow people to work from home? Allow opportunities for people to work where they're commuting. But we have so many baby boomers and Generation X guys still in leadership position who cannot understand the fact that the workspace has changed dramatically. And what's going to happen is this: such organizations are going to be losing talent. Attrition is going to be high because people are looking for different ways of working. And if leadership is not open to such conversations, then people are going to be looking for opportunities to do so. That's one. Now, the second thing is that we are grappling with the challenges of a multi-generational workforce right now. So we've got three to four generations in the workspaces, and you and I know that the nuances and the features of all the generations are different from one to another. We therefore cannot retain the same leadership model that allowed us to thrive during the baby boom era to the Generation X and now the millennials and the Gen Zs. Things must change in the way we manage people, in the way we empower them to do things. Otherwise, again, we're going to be losing talent, not only to organizations within our spaces or in different sectors, but we will continue to lose talent to the first world. Those two things. One is what technology can allow us to do in terms of changing the way we work. And two, understanding that the leadership model for a multi-generational workforce is totally going to change.
Yes. So the thing is that I've seen this, Yemi, as a confirmation to what you're saying. The multi-generational aspect that we have in organizations, and specifically in lots of the African countries, considering that we do have people who have been in senior positions for a long period of time, and they've been operating in a certain way, and change is difficult. So this is why people like you guys in your positions where you are trying to drive this change in order to accommodate what the new workforce wants and needs, and the board or the senior leadership way of working or thinking, and try to bridge that gap. This is really difficult, and it takes a lot of effort. I do see a lot of organizations in South Africa that are leading the way on this. Very few of them, though. They are setting the trend for others. So hopefully others will follow when it comes to flexible working schedules, working from home, accessing remote workforce, leveraging on freelance workers. So that there is a shift, but I see that as a slow. But there's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure on organization, a lot of pressure as well on decision makers that we need to get going. We can't like keep on doing the same things that we used to do before. Yeah, exactly. One of the things that are high on the agenda in the African context and is bias and how to reduce bias. Yeah. So considering the legacy that we have, diversity and inclusion and then reducing bias is very high on the agenda when it comes to leadership or when it comes to HR and people, right? So we always try to push in this direction. We try to bring in a lot of people who did not have access to jobs or to work before or to education, etc., etc. So how do you see? I see a lot of opportunity, but I want your opinion on that. How do you see technology impacting this particular aspect of diversity and inclusion and then reducing bias in the workplace? Yemi, would you like to start on this one?
Okay, I think that the biases have been a bit unconscious. Again, it's also because of the shift in the generations as they come into the workplace.
Yes.
The older generation is at one end of the continuum, looking at the new generation and all the adjectives of rude, they don't communicate, they're in a hurry, and all that. And then the younger generation, the other extreme, is looking at the older generation and saying they are slow, they don't grapple with technology and all that. I think in between the generations, there is a need for HR to come and let communication happen between the generations. I think there's a huge communication gap between generations, and it's causing a lot of conflict in the workplace. What we can do is find ways to leverage technology to the point where the generations are talking one to another. Because, I mean, in some organizations, it's not unlikely that you have only millennials in the workplace. In some organizations, you might have only the older generations. But where we have a multi-generational workforce, what I think we need to do is to enable technology, allow us to communicate more rather than work in silos. The more we communicate and understand the nuances of my generation and try to understand the nuances of the new generation, the better we can work together, because again, it's teamwork. And we need to leverage on the strength of one generation in the workplace and also understand our own strength. So the more we communicate, the more we allow technology allow us to communicate, the better for reduced conflict in the workspaces.
Yeah, thanks, Yemi. May?
Yes, further in addition to Yemi's comments, the rule of the thumb is that there has to be alignment between HR and the C-suite in terms of the role of agile employees. Because if you look at agile, you're talking about technology and how they're being managed and focusing on inclusion and diversity as a business priority. Also, HR will be able to support having structures that support adaptability and collaboration for decision making. For the future of work, we require breaking down these silos that are already existing, because we know each department or each functions want to run in their own way to become more of agile structures. And then another key role that they need to have is proactively anticipate talent needs. As Yemi earlier stated, that we have to support the ever-changing mix of workforce and adjust in real time and leverage on employee arrangements to achieve their goals. Today's workforce is focused on work-life fluidity and not work-life balance that blends both their personal and work activities throughout the day at the same time. So becoming experts in maximizing these remote workforces and championing the use of technology to engage agile works for collaboration and training, we also have to take cognizance of the compliance and legal issues that will arise because of that. Yes.
Yeah, on that note,
yes,
you can't have a conversation about work in Africa without talking about the unions.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm sure a lot of people who are watching us from Africa, I don't know, maybe everybody can tell us a bit where they are watching from, but I think I can see a lot of smiles on the people that are watching from Africa on their faces now.
Yes.
So we were with all of this pushing technology, flexibility, remote work, etc., and we're trying to be more inclusive and then explain how this actually will enhance productivity, happiness, and then we'll create a better employee experience. But I'm sure when we talk about the unions, there's a bit of lack of acceptance of change and different ways of working, and maybe how to say that with the while being staying diplomatic, it's just going ahead with that with the space of change that you guys are pushing from your side within corporates. So have you had any situations where you had to discuss this with the unions, and how did you deal with it? Okay, nobody wants to talk about this. Huh? May, your turn.
No.
More than ever, we are seeing the governments and the union trying to be in charge and taking cognizant of creating collaboration within the members they have from either corporates, manufacturing, etc. So we are coming at a point whereby union is coming to the table, and for example, our environment is unionized, but we are seeing a change from the last 4 or 5 years in the types of discussions we are having with the unions. They are willing to come and sit to the table. They are willing to understand where the business is going forward. However, what we are challenging them is that they are putting them back, that they need to create supportive policies and investments in place to be able to support a conducive business environment. Okay, because we always know unions are more of charge and it's always one way or the other, but creating that collaboration. More than ever in Kenya, we are seeing also the change in terms of how the government is changing the education system, because they have realized investing in human capital, particularly early childhood education, to develop higher order cognitive and social behavioral skills in addition to foundational skills such as literacy and numeracy is really needed for economic survival.
Yes.
So, and also we have an issue of data. Data is not readily available, and whether from an education generating human capital that will support effective solutions or to make an improvement of what is currently take place is something that is still work in progress. However, going forward, the governments and the union has slowly ensuring that there's sufficient market competition, there are better entrepreneurial worker human capital. We also having a change of physical or better physical infrastructure like the roads, and also stronger capacities to increase public investments in social protection and labor systems that are adaptive to the changing of nature of work.
Okay, excellent. So they can see the pace of change and they can see that it's going in the right direction, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Yemi?
Okay, so I have been lucky, Emma, to not work in any environment that is unionized, whether deliberately or not. In the 24 years of working, I have not worked in an environment that is unionized. But let me speak from a futuristic perspective, okay?
Yes.
What I say is this: gradually, because of the changes that we are seeing in the workplace and the drastic changes that we will also see going forward, the workforce is becoming the workforce of one rather than a community. So if we are gradually migrating to the workforce of one, then in the future, who's going to need a union? If you see what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that earlier the union guys or leaders understand that the workforce, the workplace is changing so rapidly, and their orientation in managing their members must also change the better. Otherwise, what they will do is that they will wake up one day and there'll be no member of the union, because everybody is looking at, organizations are looking at ways of talking to individual employees and understanding where individual employees are coming from. Like I said, the workforce of one. So what I do with Emma is not exactly the same thing I do with May. So Emma and May are going to be members of my organization, and the union is my union, not anybody's union. So the union leaders must wake up to that reality of the changing place of the workforce, and therefore adapt their strategies in managing their members.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a great perspective. And hopefully, this is where we will go eventually. So I can share with you a case from from a very big corporate over here in South Africa, but I won't mention who, in a heavily unionized environment. So at some point, the request was to review the compensation of the people and to increase the salaries, etc. Because that particular part of the workforce, they were having challenges, and they all have families, and they couldn't manage their spend, etc. So that was the request from the union. So what that big corporate did is that at that point in time, there was no way they could have increased everybody at that particular level. And comparatively to the market, they were good payers. So when you look at benchmark, etc. So what they did is exactly what May said on data. So they went and they dug deep into the data of what is exactly the problem. So they dug deep, and then they did focus groups. And then the problem was, it's not actually the level of pay that those people were on, it's how they were spending the money. It's that they didn't have the right financial education to manage their own personal money. So what they did, instead of throwing more money into that bucket, and then it's going out without actually being beneficial to them or to their families, what they did is they ran workshops in order to train everybody on how to actually manage your own financial situation, and how to save, how to invest, how to use your money, etc. And they did a helpline if people had any questions. They assigned some advisors, and they have done that in coordination with the unions. And this is where it was such a great partnership. So, and I heard this from the CHRO of this big organization, whereby she was saying that was one of the best experiences, and one of the first ones, whereby the union came in with a request. We still give them what they want, but in a completely different way, in a way that impacts people's lives, in a smart way, where we actually looked at what is the problem and we solved it. And yeah, so hopefully a lot of companies will follow their lead, and then we'll start thinking as well that, you know, that power of one, that we're all in this together and we actually have the same objective.
Absolutely.
On that note, I'll away from the union discussion, I would like to talk about international opportunities and how technology today helps us to have more of virtual collaborations, and it opens new doors of opportunities. Previously, Africa as a continent used to export a lot of its talent to all the other countries around the world, right? So a lot of the people, once they reach a certain level of education or experience, a lot of them thrive to leave and to go to the other side of the world. Whereas today, when we talk about the state of work in Africa, a lot has changed. But as well, what changed as well is that those same people who used to look forward to leave in order to get different work opportunities, today they can access those work opportunities while they are here, through leveraging on technology, through leveraging on platforms, or through leveraging on virtual collaboration. So how do you see this impacting the local workforce composition, but as well migration out of Africa? May, would you like to take this one first?
Yes.
I know that's a subject that is very dear to your heart. So I know that.
Very true. A country's true strength is its in people. And more than ever, of course, we are losing talent out of Africa, of very highly educated and skilled who live for greener pastures. However, we do take cognizant there may be push and pull factors that are wide-ranging and complex, more than technology, that why they live. And it's also dependent with any African country. It's unique in its own right way. So we have those who are forced to leave because of war and political instability. And also we also have an element of where the attraction of higher pay and better opportunities for one's family take more precedent than anything else other than accessibility. However, we do have success stories, and Rwanda, for example, holds on to their best and brightest, and at the same time attracts international talent in equal measure and leveraging on technology from policies to implementation. And of course, it tops other countries to retain top talent ahead of Morocco, Kenya, Ivory Coast, and South Africa. So regarding international attraction, learning from Rwanda, given that it's already ahead in terms of retaining talent, we are slowly seeing countries adapting to technology in terms of their policies, implementation, also allowing companies, multinational companies to set stock in locally to also hire locals in those various positions. We're also seeing various major banks who are now having their CEOs or the group MDs from who are African-led, from Africa-based. So it is really encouraging. So therefore, all I can say is that we are still work in progress in terms of retaining. However, if we are to just sort out on the foundations, better pay, in terms of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we can be able to give comfort that to all our employees or the people in Africa, it could be better and reduce on the talent out of Africa, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. Thank you, Yemi.
Yes.
Okay, so let me start by disrupting May's concept of the of the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy. I'm not sure that today's talent, the younger generation, I'm not sure it's all about money anymore. The basic needs of survival have changed from food, clothing, shelter, if you ask me, to data, power bank, and connectivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that means that they actually do not need to go anywhere before they work. I do agree with May, though, that we are seeing more and more talent going out of Africa. I mean, we are a country of almost 200 million people. The statistics I gave when I started, mind-boggling. Demand more than supply. So more and more people, younger people especially, are looking for opportunities outside of Africa. And for Nigeria, number one place of destination is Canada. Yes. We have seen instances where an entire department closed shop and everybody migrated to Canada because the head of the department went to Canada and everybody joined. We've seen such instances. But what I've also now noticed is that organizations are changing their policies around how we can work with our employees even when they are not in Nigeria.
Yes.
So one of the big four companies here in Nigeria say, yeah, by all means, go to Canada. We are not going to stop you, but you remain our employee. So you're still working on our projects, still working on our engagements, still working on our assignments. So the space within the countries are closed now digitally because there is no space between if you work in Canada or you work in Nigeria, it's the same thing. So more organizations are open to such opportunities. What is also happening is that more Nigerians also are becoming available for global organizations even whilst they are in Nigeria. The opportunities are there. You might say that such individuals have rare skills, especially the IT profession, but yes, they do stay and they have global clients. They work with 3-4 global clients across the entire global space. So things are changing, and I think the agile organization responding to the new demands of talent will probably be in the best position and take the first mover advantage in 1, attracting talent, and 2, retaining them. There has to be more and more creative ways of retaining people, given the fact that globally opportunities exist for them. Once there is an issue around a toxic workplace, leadership issues, talents are not going to stay. So the opportunities are always going to exist.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head because everything is becoming location irrelevant. So our organizations are today like the ones that you have mentioned, where a full department decides to move to Canada to relocate from Nigeria. The organization needs to be flexible because what they need is the delivery on the project. They require this talent. They want to retain them. So
Right.
location becomes irrelevant. And this is where trust is a big factor, right? So there's a lot of some of those organizations' reaction towards virtual or collaboration or remote working, etc., has to do with readiness, but it also has to do with trust. So once you establish that trust, that you will always deliver on the project, you will be on time, I will get the level of quality that is required, then it doesn't matter exactly where you sit. So from an African context, fighting it, I think, is because migrating out of Africa can always happen, will always happen, has always happened, because people have, as May said, different family situations, etc. So fighting it might not lead to a solution, but actually adapting to this whole new way of working by leveraging on technology could help us to retain the skill, whether in the organization, whether physically present or not. And so that's a thing. Thanks a lot, guys, on this particular point. That's really important to highlight, because it's a challenge throughout the African continent. But as well, one more thing that May and I individually have discussed on another occasion, and it's something that not a lot of people touch on, is its mental health. And it's the high suicidal rate that we see in some African countries because of several issues. And then some of them could be family driven, but others are lack of employment opportunities, unemployment, lack of access to education that leads to end up in this situation. So how do you see this impacted by the new trend of the future of work, but as well from this whole new way of working that is changing the landscape in some of the African countries that are moving quickly with the pace? How will this impact this high suicidal rate that we have? May, you want to start on this one?
Oh, yes, I can. We need to take cognizance of the fact that Africa is a unique and world's largest and second populous continent, and heterogeneous, comprising rural, semi-rural, urban areas, and diverse religions, ethnic groups, cultures, and several regions affected by war, political, and economic stability. Starting with the basics. If you look at the suicide research in Africa, we rarely have data, because most of the data is usually obtained from hospitals when maybe there's been an admission and maybe it was a critical condition. Hence, we're also seeing an element of leaving out statistics on the number of attempts. So therefore, and also we also, given by the fact that we are diverse, we also have further lack of medical facilities in the rural areas, meaning that there's some stats that we are still not getting. So if you look at the nutshell, suicide is higher in males than female and affecting young adults, which is our working adults between the ages of 15 to 30 years. And of course, mental health tops it all. And of course, with depression and anxiety, which we cannot no longer keep quiet at the workplaces, but we have to discuss about it. And of course, looking about health problems, alcohol and drug, family conflicts and the like. So the impact this has on the future of work is that it's an important element to achieve a healthy workplace in the development of legislation, policies, etc. However, we are seeing a growing rate in Africa where companies are coming with initiatives at the workplaces with mental health interventions and employee assistance programs. That is a step to start with our employees as part of an integrated health and well-being strategy that covers prevention, early identification, support, and rehabilitation. It's very easy to see the change of character of an employee. One time is a high performing, the next time is a low performing. There's an element of coaching required from our leaders and managers at the workplace to be able also not to be focusing more on performance, but also any other underlying issues that may not come up during the day-to-day works. So we're also seeing an element of what Yemi Ali said, flexible hours. We are seeing an element of job redesigns, addressing negative workforce dynamics, as well as having supportive and confidential communication with management can help employees come out of this. But this is a discussion that we need to start having right now. It can no longer be put under the carpet.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes.
thanks, May. And do you see a lot of companies from your experience that are adopting those maybe those practices in order to assist their employees?
Oh, yes. Currently at Copycat, we already have an existent employee assistant program. We also have the likes of Safaricom. We have the likes of Unilever, who also have these programs in place to be able to support the mental health of our employees. Yes, we do.
Yeah, because they do realize the importance of that.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Excellent. Thanks, Yemi. Yemi, can you hear me?
Okay, so maybe just two things to add to what. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes,
can you
yes,
hear me?
perfectly, perfectly.
Hello. Okay. So just two things to add to what she has said. Just two things. One is the fact that yes, I do agree that mental health was something nobody was talking about in the workplaces. It was too personal, and nobody wanted to encroach within that space. But more and more, we're seeing individuals coming out, and then because of availability of data, now organizations are looking at more employer assistance programs. That's one. Then the second thing, and this is what nobody talks about, leadership toxicity is actually adding to mental instability of employees. And because I have conversations on an ongoing basis with young people, the mental issues that people grapple with, they come up more even in our workplaces of today because of instances of leadership failure. And because employees are not in a position to take on leadership, then what employees do is they moan and groan and they go home and they're worried about coming to the workspaces the next morning, but because they have to pay the bills, they come again. I think enough of HR people, putting HR people in the room and having conversations with them. I would like to see HR people putting leadership of organizations into the room and letting them realize that people are going through mental stress because of instances of leadership failure. I would love to see more of that.
Yes, that's a good point. It's actually what is actually triggering it. So are we talking about leadership failure that is putting in all of this pressure, and then that's what's actually creating all of this depression, mental health, etc.? Or could it be, as what May said, that is as well triggered by the family situation, the pressure, etc., and then they will still come up and show up to work and then have to deal with what is happening in the organization. The great thing is to hear is that in several African countries, this has been accepted as a problem, and it's being dealt with organizations and corporates at every level. And especially there's a lot of organizations that are here in South Africa as well that are partnering with organizations in order to assist them. There is a helpline that is available the whole time. Talking about data and statistics, a lot of this data is fed back into the corporate world in order to open their eyes as to the triggers and what is happening, so we will know how to deal with it in the workplace. To wrap up, I have one last question for you guys, because it's something that there's actually worldwide, but in lots of the African countries, it's very important when we talk about entrepreneurship, and especially considering the existing economical situation. Everybody is turning to entrepreneurship and then wondering, when is the next unicorn is going to surface and from which African country? So my question here is fairly simple. What are we doing to enable those entrepreneurs? And what type of ecosystem are we building around them? And from a work perspective as well, how are we trying to include a lot of the groups of people that were excluded from such journeys before, in order to impact their life positively. So maybe Yemi, you can start on this one.
Okay. I think the environment itself, because of what technology has enabled us to do, is producing more and more entrepreneurs. Maybe not on the large scale that we see in other parts of the world, but I mean, we see so many young people in Nigeria, and I'm sure other parts of Africa, doing great things, reshaping the way we work in different sectors of the economy. But I think the government needs to do a bit more in the area of infrastructure. I think the more to support them.
Exactly.
I mean, in Lagos, I'm sure you know, we still at times spend 2-3 hours in the morning commuting to work,
Yes.
and then after work in the evening, a couple of hours again. I mean, it's telling on how creative we can be. If some elements of infrastructure development are taken up by the government, then it frees up the creative juices to flow, and more people can think of from an entrepreneurial perspective. But I must tell you that so many young people are doing great things in different areas, and that is because of what technology can allow us to do. But we need more. We can do more if government can just enable from an infrastructure perspective.
Definitely. May, I would love to hear your views on this one.
Yes, of course, in addition to Yemi's point is that the government policymakers have an element to push in terms of supporting the inventors, entrepreneurs, to have the potential to innovate and thrive. Supporting investors, entrepreneurs that are needed to develop tools for upskilling for the stock of low-skilled works. That will be very critical, as well as developing intervention to facilitate productivity, upgrading of informal farms. So we know most of our entrepreneurs are either doing farming business or small scale, and farms to upgrade their skills of their employees, and also upgrading the digital infrastructure. Like Yemi has said, if there's no electricity, that means we cannot access technology. Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
That's true. So on that point, there are some very progressive organizations that are based in South Africa, but they're actually international entities that are operating over here. And what they're doing is they are adopting a flexible working approach with their employees in order to enable them to start up their own businesses and to develop them to eventually become a full-on entrepreneur and independent. So what they're doing basically is they're at the same time they are developing them as entrepreneurs, but enabling them that to eventually disconnect from the organization and being able to develop their own businesses. So they are going through programs. They have coaches from within the organization that are helping them, and some of the organizations, they went as far as investing in those businesses in order to help them out. So in this manner, what they're doing is that they are helping them to phase out of the organization and to become independent and entrepreneurs, but as well creating more space to bring in new people into the organization and then create more job opportunities. So that's their way of dealing with creating new job opportunities in a more creative way and more productive to both to both ends, right? The new people that are coming in and the people that are phasing out, because they become completely independent and then they can take care of their own families. I think we're almost done with time, guys. Thank you very much for all your contribution. I'm really thankful that we had this opportunity. Thanks a lot to Hacking HR and to Enrique specifically. From a One Circle perspective, I'm really happy and proud that we were able to sponsor this event and make it possible for everybody to access and to share this knowledge for free with the whole world. So yeah, thanks a lot. everyone.
Well
I think
done.
we will be able.
Thank you. Wow, well
Thank
done.
you.
Okay.
All
Well
right.
done to you
Thank you.
guys. Thanks a
All
lot.
right.
Thank
I
See you.
you.
think.